Hi, good morning. Welcome to Sparkle, where we inspire, connect, and encourage women in our faith. And today we have a special guest. She's actually living in San Francisco, which is nice that we can have guests from all over the country. And her name is Elise Johnson. And welcome, Elise.
Thank
And
you.
she started out in San Francisco um, years ago, a few years ago at least, and she was involved in dance. So she trained in dance and went to San Francisco thinking that was going to be her avenue of success. And it probably was, and we'll hear more about that. But
Mhm.
she kind of transitioned and knew God's love in a different way. And I think her whole entire life now is really kind of geared toward her faith. And it says here, she sent me her bio, but it says, Elise envisioned herself being in San Francisco, came to pass, but it looked on a larger meaning of dancing through waves of transformation. She can't wait to share with you today what this has looked like for her, what this is her story, and what God had for her as a bigger plan. And we welcome Elise, and let's hear your story.
All right. Hello. I'm so happy to share my story today. And I actually love that you have a picture of a flower behind you, because that's just a lot of what God has shown me over the years is really just what beauty from ashes means. Um, so what I wanted to do today was actually share a God story, but I'll kind of share a little bit of both of what that transformation looks like, but then a little bit about the God story too. So yes, I moved to San Francisco 7.5 years ago. It was my senior year of college that I was going through a hard time and I reached out to a friend and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to come visit San Francisco. It just sounds great. It sounds fun. It sounds like a wonderful escape." So when I visited her, we actually walked around the city in like a whole day. It's a very walkable city for those of you that have either not been here or you have. You either know that or you don't. And so there was just so much to see on that day that we walked around. And there's just so many colorful buildings here, colorful houses. And I just remember getting this feeling in my heart of the Lord just wanting to show me a lot of color in my life. And I didn't really know what that meant, but it just stuck with me so deep in my spirit. And so, fast forward a little bit, I had the plan to move out to San Francisco and dance and have this big dance career. And yes, I did have the opportunity to dance here professionally, do some freelance work, but also dance in some smaller companies. And that was so beautiful. But the bigger story that God had in mind for me was really turning me into a dancer in more ways than I could have planned, and really just dancing through the waves and actually getting to know his voice on a much deeper level through trials and, yeah, transformation, and eventually letting those things become into testimony. Um, so when I first moved here, I had a lot of anxiety, and I remember joining a church and having kind of a small view of how I viewed community and what I thought that looked like. Graduating from college, I I just had this really narrow lens of, okay, community looks like young people right out of college, and that excites me. But the Lord actually, at that time, put me in a community group with lots of families, married couples. And at the time, I was just like, you know what, this doesn't work for me. And so I found myself kind of stepping away for a little bit. And in that time, I just was experiencing a lot of anxiety in my life. Um, and long story short, um, yeah, this is just really where I see the Lord use that purpose of, like, man tries to plan his path, but God will always guide his steps. I really just saw that walked out in my life because I somehow was still on the email chain for my community group. And I hadn't been to my community group in, gosh, a long time, like 6 months. And I get this email from a girl who had joined the group, and I left, and she said, "Hey guys, I'm going to go on a hike on this day. Feel free to come." And I actually wound up randomly just going on this hike, and I just said, "Okay, I'll be there." Um, this girl really became a mentor for me in just showing me what the Holy Spirit really looks like, the voice of the Holy Spirit really looks like in our lives, and just the peace of God that uh, passes all understanding. Um, and when I was with her that day, I had a little tiny anxiety attack, and she looked at me and she just said, "Hey, are you okay?" And I told her, "Yeah, I'm okay. I've got things under control a little bit. I have a little bit of anxiety, but um, it's better." And she just looked at me just in such a gentle way, and she said, um, "I'm just so excited to see how God like wants to work in you in just a deeper way in that. I believe He wants to heal that." And yeah, I was going to say, long story short, again, I said that a couple times. But basically, through that, um, there just was this invitation of the gentleness of God in such a powerful way. And I wound up finding my way back to my community group, and the Lord really just opened the eyes of my heart, and allowed me to see community in a completely different way, where my heart was just like overflowing with love. And my favorite day of the week became going to community group. And fast forward a month from then, I realized that my anxiety was completely healed, and I hadn't taken my anxiety meds in a month. And I had this moment where I had to look back and say, wow, the Lord has healed me in a really unique way through the love of community. So that was kind of the first moment where my eyes just became transformed towards God's beauty of how He wants to do things in His way. Um, and then this is just a fun God story. Years from then, my life just began to change, is still changing, continuing to change. But yeah, down the road, um, I became a leader for my community group, and my heart was just open towards new things. I was still dancing at the time, but COVID then happened, and new things were happening. And so I just remember one day asking the Lord during the pandemic. I just said, "God, am I supposed to move out of my apartment?" That question just came up for whatever reason, and I just heard this really still small whisper say, "Be willing." And I just kind of had to sit back and go, "Uh-oh." I think that's you speaking, Lord. And so I remember that day being at a grocery store and running into a friend, and when she saw me, she looked at me and she said, um, "Elise, I have to, let you know that I am potentially moving out of my apartment, and I thought of you. Would you be open to moving into my apartment, taking over my spot?" And I just remember thinking in that moment, "Oh no, oh no, I think this might be where the Lord is directing me." But I was filled with fear a little bit, because I didn't want to leave my roommate at the time, who was one of my best friends that I grew up with. She still is today. And so I had to just walk out some fear. And I remember just feeling God's heartbeat on that, and just His light on that, and Him saying, "I just want to walk you through some changes again, and follow my way. I want to, take you into this." And so my friend and I ended up coming up with an agreement where actually I would move into her place as a sublease. And through that, that was a crazy few months where I just wanted to enjoy those few months and not have to look for an apartment in that time. But when it came down to the last 2 weeks before needing to move out, I didn't have a place to live, but one place popped up that I had a lot of excitement about, and I felt peace in my heart. So that place is now where I live. And this is really where the God story comes in. And this just points to God's timing, his voice, the Holy Spirit, and just being willing to walk in his ways and not our own, and also just his provision. And so when
Um,
I,
Elise,
yes,
we only have like about 1 or 2 minutes.
okay, okay,
So just kind of
yeah,
wrap. And I know it is amazing to see how God brings about peace and
hmm,
healing anxiety and giving you direction is just
yeah.
amazing. I love that. But go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you for the time cap. So yeah, I just remember visiting this apartment and I felt the presence of of God so strong, just so strong. And I said, "All right, Lord, I think this is it. This is where I'm gonna live." And turns out, I ended up finding out from my now roommate, but who was not my roommate at the time. She reached out and said, "Hey, we're actually going to go with someone else because we need someone long term." And I just remember feeling crushed because I was like, oh no, I really felt the presence of the Lord on this. I felt like I was supposed to live here. So I actually ended up moving to a place called Antioch, California. And I lived there for 2 months. And in the course of those 2 months, my life kind of fell apart. I lost a family member, had been assaulted all in the same week. And in that week, I got in my car and I just cried out to the Lord, really cried out and just yelled at God. And I just said, Lord, I know that San Francisco is my home. Why have you brought me here? And what is going on? And in that week, I got the text from my now roommate who, previously was living here, and she said, hey, I know this is so out of the blue. I know that it was not supposed to work out, but actually we've had some changes. Are you willing to now move in? Turns out that it was really just the Lord's timing, of him providing this place for me, last minute, because it allowed space for my best friend to also move in at the same time, which previously had not been available if it had been months before. And so, yeah, just there was beauty
Wow.
again, just in
Yeah.
God's timing.
Well, I mean, I can see that. I mean, when you move to a city like San Francisco, there's so many, actually, there's barriers, there's walls, there's anxious moments, and to see God working in that and bringing about people in your life that
Mhm.
actually brought about peace in a place that really, um, it can be tumultuous. San Francisco, I love San Francisco, but there's a lot of, um, I don't know. There's a lot of different things going on there. You can have from A to Z in San Francisco. And the
Yes.
fact that it's walkable, like you said, it definitely is
Mhm.
walkable. It's a doable city.
Mhm.
But to think that God kind of has been giving you peace like he has during a very tumultuous time in your life is just amazing. And that you are, and you're still at peace. I mean, but it doesn't mean there aren't going to be times where there's ups and downs and you're going to have crises in your life. But you
Right.
just need to keep, like you said, you cried out to God and he was there and he answered. So what a
Yeah.
beautiful story. I just so
Yeah.
appreciate that. Yeah. So thank you,
You're
Elise, for
welcome.
sharing today on
Yeah.
Sparkle. Many women watch these little snippets just to gain encouragement and insight. So we just thank you for that.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us today on Sparkle, and we'll see you again soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was so good to be with you guys.